Good morning. Good morning, America. Good morning, St. Louis. It's Mark Reardon. We do this thing on Tuesday mornings at 11, and I had a listener yesterday who suggested, hey, why don't you call it Tuesday mornings at 11? We might do that because we don't have a name for it, but we started a few weeks ago. Let me bring in Rick Niner, who is a St. Louis native. He grew up here. We went to high school, Parkway West, and we're going to chat as we do every Tuesday morning, politics, entertainment, and sports. Dave Klein is here to play referee and to keep the time. We do 7-minute segments. As I pointed out last week, we were going to do 6-minute segments. We thought the sign of the devil was best to avoid. Good morning, Rick. How are you? I don't hear him. I have technical. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. We're doing a Verizon commercial too. Hey, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Dave. Good to see you guys. Hope you guys are safe and sound in St. Louis. I'm safe and sound in Las Vegas.
Let's get it rolling, Dave. What are we going to start with, and how are we going to kick this off? He's going to keep the time. Give us like a 2-minute, 1-minute warning, and we'll rock and roll here.
All right, you got it. Well, obviously, after the events of last week, it's hard not to start with politics. So we're going to start with politics. Mark, go.
All right, Rick, and I'm going to ask you the question because the president actually made some comments this morning where he, again, seemingly has no clue about what happened last week and is in denial. Now, again, I think for maybe 5 years, there have been a lot of people out there, myself included, because I wanted to be on his side on the issues that thought, well, you know what, maybe this guy is going to kind of change his tune. It's not going to happen. So did you see those comments? And do you think that this is the last of the drama?
One, if you're referring to the comments where he kind of disassociated himself with any responsibility to what happened on Wednesday, those comments, yes. I briefly saw them. What do I think of them? I mean, really? I mean, I don't think there's anybody in America, unless you're in some sort of fog, that doesn't believe that what he said that day aggravated this crowd enough and instigated this crowd enough to go down to the Capitol and do what they did. So, again, anybody else would have done that. I mean, let's be real. If Barack Obama had done that 4 years ago, I hate to say it, they probably would have tied him up and lynched him right there on the spot. And that's crazy to say, but I somewhat believe it. So, do I believe this is the end of the drama? No, and I've discussed this with you. Every time Donald Trump has gone to a point by which we have said there is no way he recovers and does something worse. I mean, go back 4.5 years ago with the Access Hollywood comments. Who, any other candidate would have been gone out of their mind? I mean, what's his name on the monkey business, which he wishes he could have all those years ago. What? Yeah. What was Gary his name? Hart. Yeah, Gary Hart wishes he could have got that passed. I mean, his election campaign pretty much ended that day. It was over and done. So I'm scared it's not over. I mean, I'm actually very concerned that it's not over.
There are a lot of people. Look, I'm getting a fair amount of pushback, and Bill McGurn wrote about this, I think, in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Look, there are a lot of people who voted for Trump, who supported him on the issues, who supported the Supreme Court justices, maybe even some of the folks who protested last week. They feel like a lot of the coverage of this is unfair. They go back, obviously, to what happened over the summer with the riots. And I think some of that is fair, by the way. But in this instance, it's a very unusual, well, maybe it's not unusual. There is no willingness to accept the horrific consequences. You know, some of these people who were there and who are pushing back right now, they were outraged when Officer David Dorn died here in St. Louis during a riot last summer. And Rick, I don't know about you, but I've watched videos now for 6 days, and I watched more this morning that I had not seen. It's horrifying what happened. Now, clearly, not everyone who was there was protesting. Same thing with over the summer. But you have to be willing to accept the responsibility of what happened here. And, you know, a lot of people are pointing toward the president. You know who's kind of getting off easy in all this, I think, is Don Jr. Because if you go back to last Wednesday and you hear the audio of Don Jr., everyone's focusing on the president inciting. Boy, I'll tell you what, his son, in my opinion, I think Don Jr. incited more than the president.
Well, I agree. Rudy Giuliani, there's a lot of people that are culpable in this. I mean, you look around and there's an awful lot. But what is amazing to me, and I think I might have tipped my hand on this, is, I watched what happened on Wednesday night. And again, I told you I'm not a avid viewer of one station. I watched Fox News the night of the election and discussed that with you as to what happened, and thought it was interesting how they waited so long to kind of finally admit or accept that Donald Trump had been president. I think partially it was so they could let the other news stations do it, and they didn't have to take the blame of hopping out first. I think so. But to watch on Wednesday night, and to think in the summer how people like Sean Hannity and other social media and television media people were just outraged by the events that happened during Black Lives Matters, when the CVS got suddenly burned down and Karen wasn't going to be able to get her antidepressant medicine before the next morning's episode of The View, even though you can drive 1.3 miles down to the next CVS. And just listening to Sean Hannity just be reprehensible about what happened. And look at CNN, who was kind of a position.
Oh, I see frozen video. Hopefully that's not going to continue. I'm not sure. Dave, is it frozen on your end?
I see it frozen as well. Yeah, we're down to 2 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get him
back. Take the reins, Mark.
What's that?
We'll let you take the reins with the last.
Yeah. Well, and that's fine. Look, I understand. What I've tried to do is be consistent on this. I've always tried to be consistent. So if I'm outraged by what happened over the summer, and I was, and I think a lot of people were, I'm absolutely outraged by what happened last Wednesday. And it's not appropriate to deflect the blame or to say that the president had nothing to do with this or Josh Hawley had nothing to do with this, because clearly they ramped up these folks and, they got their blood going. And I don't know what, there was another message yesterday, and I wanted to get Rick's reaction to this. If we can bring him back here, hopefully he's going to sign back in. But Dave, I mentioned this yesterday. I'll have to go to my phone because I think I still have it in here. There was, and I don't know how people feel about this, right now. When I say people, the people who are convinced that somehow the president was still good. I have my cat, by the way, I don't know if you see this, but my one cat, my adult cat Coco, is sitting here and she's looking for affection. But there were messages going around yesterday that indicated that, something was going to happen, that the president was going to speak last night at 8:00. It was going to be a big speech, and it was going to be about everything that was coming together in this big reveal of all this information that we already haven't had. Now, look, that was never going to happen, and there is no information that's going to lead that to be the case. However, there are a lot of people who feel this way and believe this. And when I was talking about this on the air yesterday, I mentioned that this happened also last Friday with Dave. Remember, I went to a business, and my friend who's the owner, and she was in deep conversation, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And she comes over and she says, well, that was a woman who feels strongly that, this is not over yet. I'm getting a message. Hold on. I got to see if Rick can click the link again. So I think he thinks his internet might have gone out. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I think what you have to kind of consider this morning is, and this is what I asked my friend. I said, well, wait, how? I think I started this way. I said, did the president talk last night at 8:00? And she said no. And my response was, well, what about the people who, who believe that? And she told me that the one person who had sent that message to her was sick to his stomach this morning. Not, because these are people who have been led to believe time and time again. Now, by the way, I don't know exactly where they're being led to believe this, because I guess it's the QAnon stuff. I'm not exactly sure if it is. Dave, yesterday, remember when Gene Evans was on? And I apologize because I think we're having technical difficulties, and I don't think he can click the link back on, but I'll tell him to click it back on. Remember when Gene Evans was on? She was the former executive director of the party, and she was talking about some of these things because there were threats that were left on the voicemail of the party. And she said something about QAnon. And I remember hearing over the summer, QAnon. I had no idea what that was. I still kind of really don't know what it was. And I was dismissing it. I knew that there were some people out there that were affiliated with this group, but I don't think I really knew how cray-cray they were. And Gene said the same thing yesterday. And it was interesting because I had a similar reaction because I think one of the things that was most revealing about what happened last week, and Michael Phillips, who's a columnist of the Wall Street Journal, came on yesterday, Dave, as you know, and they interviewed a guy who was part of this, and he is a all-in QAnon conspiracy theorist. He thinks that Hillary Clinton drinks the blood of children. I mean, these are people that but they believe this. You know, we have the quotes, and we had Mr. Phillips on yesterday talking about that. So yeah, it's way out there, and I've kind of felt for a while like we have 4 different parties in this country right now. You know, we have the extreme people on the left, we have the extreme people on the right, and there's this this group in the middle, though, that I think is very, very confused about what's going on in the world right now as well. I don't know if we're going to get this going with Rick, so I'm looking for a little guidance here. I'm not sure if the host of the program on the web, Eric, has some advice here. Dave, let's move on to, and we'll see if Rick can join in because you are a Bears fan, and we'll talk about the NFL a little bit. And this was a tweet that I sent to you this morning. You actually thought it was pretty funny because it was. You and I watched part of the game on Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah.
So the NFL game was on Nickelodeon and also on, was it ABC or CBS? I can't remember.
CBS, because CBS and Nickelodeon one in the same.
Guys,
right.
The power went out here. Apparently, the government is listening. I swear to God, I'm talking, and all of a sudden it goes, and I noticed all the power in the house went out.
Antifa. It was Antifa. I think you got to recognize. All right, we'll pick it up. I tried to babble for a little while. Dave, pick the next topic, and we'll roll from there. Dave and I were kind of starting on sports. You want to just go with sports?
We're done with sports. Let's go with sure. Sports.
All right, Rick, I'll let you go first on sports. I have something I brought up with him, but we'll let you go first here.
Okay, are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Obviously, Antifa is listening in. Well, I mean, what's there to talk about? I think we're headed for a Packers-Chiefs showdown in the Super Bowl. I think it's inevitable. I don't see the Rams beating the Packers. The Browns look great. What a great game, although the Steelers started to come back. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to go Packers-Chiefs. I think it's happening. What do you think?
I think it's probably going to happen. But look, the team that scares me right now would be the Ravens, just because they're in the ball. And I'm kind of glad, although it's a be careful what you wish for, I'm glad that the Chiefs have to face the Browns this weekend. I would think with the bye and Andy Reid having this team ready and, Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be fine against the Browns. But it's the NFL and strange things happen. Even with the Steelers, Rick, as you know, even with them being blown out in the first half, there was a moment with, I guess, 10 minutes left in that game where it was an 11-point game. Now, obviously, they never closed the gap. But the team that does scare me on the AFC side would be, definitely would be the Ravens. The Bills are a good team. But on the NFC side, there's storylines there, like Drew Brees going out and winning another Super Bowl. I hope as a Packers fan that doesn't happen. Now, what Dave and I were talking about is we watched the game on Nickelodeon. Rick, you do not have children. So, Nickelodeon did a special broadcast the other day, and somebody had tweeted this out because they were concerned about children. The Bears offense should be ashamed for torturing the kids watching on Nickelodeon. Dave, as a Bears fan, would you like to respond to that?
Well, you can't defend it. I don't know why you're going to show that offense to a national audience, trying to build an audience of kids, and you're putting that out there. It was horrible. This is the team that has passed on so many good quarterbacks over the years, and then they get embarrassed on national TV. Now, I will say the game was closer than I thought it was going to be at first, but Drew Brees, like Drew Brees does, always just comes back and does what he does, and showed that the Bears are they're the Bears. They're the Bears, and they're always going to be the Bears, and they're still looking for answers. And I don't know if that helped build a kid's audience or not, but it was cool to see.
Well, I will say this, Dave. If in the 70s we were able to restrict children from seeing the Marlboro Man on television, I think we should do the same for the Chicago Bears. I mean, I'm sorry, but I really do. I think that you should have to be of a certain age before you're allowed to watch them on television, because that was one big slime as far as I'm concerned. But I did see a little bit of it, Mark, and I thought it was kind of cool what they were doing with Nickelodeon. I mean, anything that we can do to get the word out on football, I think is fantastic. Quite frankly,
well, we've been talking about, so I think we're all in agreement. The Bears are a public health crisis. Did anyone watch the game? Did Rick? We haven't talked to you this morning. Did you watch the national championship game last night? Here's where I was with that. It was about, I guess, midway in the second quarter, maybe toward the last part of the second quarter. And Ohio State was keeping pace to a certain extent in the first quarter, the early part of that game. But it became very clear. I looked over at one point to Becky and I said, they're going to win by 21 points and we're going to watch something else. So we turned on Cobra Kai. And I don't know what, it was more than 21, I think, in the end. They were
about
just
28.
Yeah. It didn't surprise me in the end that it didn't become close.
I mean, let's be real, though. Alabama has played the best football all year long. I mean, they really have. I mean, Clemson, you could say potentially, but I mean, that at Ohio State game was dismal for Clemson. So I wasn't surprised by the outcome. I really wasn't. I mean, Alabama was the best team overall this year. I mean, quite frankly, I think what we should have seen was like Alabama -7 against the Jets.
That would have been interesting, right? But the whole
it actually would have. I mean, or Jacksonville. I think that would have been a really fun game, and I think Alabama could have beat those two teams.
You could have gotten creative. What if it would have been, a tiebreaker for the first round pick, and if you win against Alabama, you get the first round pick. If you lose, you don't get the first round pick. I mean, you can get creative working into the future with these draft choices. Come on, Roger Goodell.
Hey, remember what I said? How about the worst two teams in the NFL play one more game, and whoever wins that gets the first round pick? I think that's a fun game. But I do have to ask you, Mark, now, because this Friday it starts. Where do the Blues end this year? NHL starts on Friday, I believe, or Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday, and Klein might be better suited to ask this question because I'm not as dialed into hockey. And as you know, well, maybe you don't know, KMOX does not carry the games as much. And I get kind of into hockey after college basketball or late summer, depending on when the season is wrapped up. But look, Dave, you kind of chime in here. I think the Blues certainly are going to be competitive. There have been some changes. We got a new captain, but everyone's ready for hockey here in St. Louis. I think there's a fair amount of disappointment that the shortened season didn't end a little differently for the Blues coming off the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, they got a few new good pieces to put into their already good equation. I think they would even admit that the team that they didn't really play up to the expectations that they had in that bubble in Canada last year. So I think they're really out, and it sounds cliche to say, but they're out to prove that that Stanley Cup victory was not just a one-time deal. They want it back, and I think this team is well positioned to do it. All the puzzle pieces are still pretty much for the most part there.
I think you could build up an interesting rivalry throughout the year and potentially in the playoffs, because obviously the team that is expected to win is the team that is now my hometown. That is the Golden Knights. So I mean, obviously they are right now. I believe are the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup.
And they stole our captain.
And yeah, exactly. So I see a little bit of a rivalry there. It would be interesting if these two teams somehow get to the playoffs and have to play each other potentially to go to the Cup. Wouldn't that be kind of a little interesting sideline to everything that has happened? So I'm actually excited for hockey. And I can say that with enthusiasm that has been built up more based probably upon COVID and having a break between football being over, and then we've got till April now, or May, I think it is, until baseball. So we've got this stretch. So I'm excited for hockey, and I have two teams that I get to root for. Don't ask me, what I would do if they had to play each other and an opportunity to go to the Cup. I don't know what I'd do, but I am still a St. Louis Blues fan, but of course I am a Golden Knights fan now as well. So go hockey.
All right, let's start the clock on the final segment here, Dave, on entertainment, and I'm gonna go first here on this one, and it is the 50. I'm gonna spend a little time on my show this afternoon. Rick, you and I are you're a fair amount older than I am. I'm about to turn 56. You're about what, 6? Okay, he's going to be 57. He's 56 right now. But we were kids 50 years ago today. We were only 5-6 years old when All in the Family started. This is the anniversary of All in the Family. When they did a couple years ago, maybe it was even, you lose track of time. It might have been 2019. where they had done the live versions with, updated cast members, but recreating the exact same scripts from All in the Family. And if you watch the old shows, it's kind of jarring, even in 2020 or 2021, watching the topics and the language that they tackled on that show. It was groundbreaking and should be recognized. So a 50th anniversary for All in the Family today.
So here's my question. Could they air that show today?
Good question. It is a good question. And I'm not so sure that they could. It was one of the issues we're going to tackle this afternoon, because if you hear, just even the language from Carol O'Connor, and it was appropriate because they were trying to shake things up, obviously, back in the early 1970s. But I'm not so sure it would air today. It was certainly not on network television, right?
I mean, and you think about going back, groundbreaking with regards to the events. Sammy Davis Jr. shows up on it. It's a whole racial tension. There was a lot of stuff that took place in All in the Family that I do not believe at all could be done today on television. Absolutely groundbreaking in what it did in going through all of the issues that we still talk about today: sexuality, racism, class. It's all in that. I mean, it really, probably, you look back, is probably one of the most underrated television shows of its time, simply because of what it tackled and what they allowed to get away with versus the politically correct craziness that we are in now. I think it probably should go down as probably one of the most underappreciated television shows that's been on, because it really is crazy. I don't think it could be on today. It couldn't be on NBC, ABC, or CBS. That's for sure. It definitely couldn't.
Yeah, maybe on cable. All right, what do you got for me? Entertainment.
A couple of things, too quickly. One, first of all, I think you had kind of mentioned something about the Tiger series on HBO Max. Am I correct?
Right. The documentary, Woods documentary, part 1 aired on Sunday night. Correct.
I just want to say that I watched part 1, and it is amazing. I am amazed at what that man has been through. I understand the publicity around what happened with regards to his sexual escapades, but to see the pressure that this guy has been on, that's just the part 1 of that series was just a fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
I was not as blown away by it because I think it's several tiers below the Michael Jordan doc or the OJ doc or something like that. However, the one thing that did strike me, I agree with you. It's interesting. You see his first girlfriend, Dina, maybe not his first girlfriend, but his first serious girlfriend, is interviewed, and she shows and shares pictures of Tiger. You see Tiger Woods in a way that we've never seen him before, being a kid, just being a kid, trying to have fun. And the pressure that he was under from his father was immense. So I thought it was interesting. My concern is, as you get into the second part, is it going to be revealing and compelling, or is it just going to be salacious? And I think they're kind of getting into the salacious stuff, which is fine if that's where you want to go, but doesn't interest me as much as the golf, personally.
Listen, The Last Dance was fantastic. I mean, it was absolutely one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. I have also told you that How to Mend a Broken Heart by the Bee Gees, entertainment, but music, not sports, still in that category. Phenomenal. I don't put this one in that category, but I found it incredibly interesting just to look at everything we are going through with regards to racial tension. And here's this guy that really broke barriers in what is an all-white sport. And I mean, so just watching that, looking what we're going through, seeing everything, and looking at the pressure that this kid was on from 10 months old. I mean, I would have, quite frankly, spiraled out of control worse than he had with all of the pressures that were put on this guy. So I just found that amazing. So no, is it the best documentary I've seen this year? I don't think so. I loved the Bee Gees documentary from just a music nostalgia point of view and everything that they had done, and so much more than this they're singing. And I love The Last Dance was phenomenal. I mean, an unbelievable documentary. So, but I like it. I really do. I would recommend it for people that are sports nuts to see some of the stuff, like you said, the footage that we haven't seen or stuff that we haven't seen.
2 minutes left. 2 minutes.
Well, and you talk about the pressure. It's not just the pressure of golf. There was immense pressure. There's clips from Oprah that they show because there was this feeling as he was bridging this racial gap that he should be more representative. And there was controversy because, and I can't remember the exact term, Rick, do you remember the term that he used to describe himself as a mixed race? It was
a combination of black, Asian. It was some weird, and you saw them debating this, other sports celebrities talking about it. Now, look, I just think the racial aspect was really fascinating in understanding what they had put on this guy's shoulders, all based upon his ability to play golf. I found that very interesting.
One more thing I want to – we're running out of time here for the segment, but I got to throw in a little bit of a plug. There's a movie that opens on demand. It's actually in some theaters right now called Promising Young Woman with Carey Mulligan. It is a movie that you are going to sit back and say, wow, it's not for everyone. Basically, it's a story of a woman who is dating men and seeking revenge for very personal reasons because of a dear friend of hers. And I don't want to say much more of that because it's one of those wow movies that has a bunch of, I always called these holy blank moments, like from The Sopranos, where something really pops in an episode. And you're going to see this in Promising Young Woman, which is also one of the awards favorites, an Oscar contender as we head into a very different award season for the next couple of months. So that's my recommendation this week for movies. Now, men aren't going to like it as much as women because there's a lot of man hating in there. Stick with it. It's worth it as one of the best endings of a movie that I've seen in a while.
I want to ask one thing of both of you before we go, a topic that I'm curious. Are either one of you or both of you familiar with the Olive Garden pasta pass controversy?
I am. Yeah, I talked about it on Friday.
Okay, but you are, and the reason I bring it up in the entertainment section, and then I know we have to go, is because everybody does recognize that this was actually a comedian making social commentary on what is going on.
No. I didn't know that. I wasn't sure.
Really?
So this gets out there. I figured it wasn't real, but it was so funny.
It is absolutely one of the most amazing jokes that I think has ever been played. His social commentary on what he did and what he read is, first of all, a statement on corporations constantly having to put out a tweet or a statement regarding everything. As an example, Axe body spray having to come out and be against the Capitol riots because in one of the pictures, I guess, there was deodorant laying on the ground.
I missed that one. Klein, pull that from the set.
We have to go. I know we're running out of time. But this, the where he says it's, the Holiday Inn, and he also talks about Olive Garden. That was a direct statement from Anderson Cooper on Wednesday night when Anderson Cooper said, when these rioters leave, and the Olive Garden. If you go back and you deconstruct the joke, it is phenomenal and amazing because what he's saying is you've got this son from the Vanderbilts talking about class, and then you have Sean Hannity, who's worth about $50 million, defending, acting like he's the common folk. I just wanted to say, I actually look at it, and it's absolutely brilliant commentary. And it's complete entertainment, but really looks at where we're at with social media corporations and the news. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
It's going to get crazier from here. All right, we have wrapped up another edition. We're just going to call it to like Tuesday mornings at 11. And nice technical difficulties there with the power going out. That was a highlight. We weren't anticipating that.
It was Antifa.
I had so much time. Klein, it was Antifa. We were a target. There's no doubt. Klein, I'll see you this afternoon. Rick, have a great week. We'll talk next Tuesday at 11. Let's do it maybe at 11 next Tuesday. What do you think?
Okay, sounds good. I like that. Maybe that could be the name.
Maybe.